should possibly be up and running. I hope so. 'Cause it should be doing it. Should be. I don't know. I think it takes a bit of time to link to it. I'm not quite sure. Okay, videos. Live. Beyond the live bit. Yeah, there we go. Ah, here we go. Right, let's have a look. Right. Linked up with it. There you go. So that seems to be working. Seems to be working okay actually, so that's good. Waiting the password on there, I don't know. I'll have to get off that. Shouldn't be password and all that. Wait, it should be alright. That goes to my headset. Right. Everything goes through headset anyway. I don't have anything going through speakers or nothing like that. I don't want to be upset neighbours and stuff like that, you know. Yeah, so I got it all sorted out like that, and we got TTS, and it'll probably repeating. Let's have a look at this, right? This is like training your voice. That's to train the voice. Set of earbuds or something like that, but it should be working as well. The camera, I can get the camera up. I'll try to just to show you how the camera works and all that sort of stuff. I'll try and do that. Try and do that for you. I'll try and do that for you if I can. Give us 2 seconds.
Oh, look at that works. Oh, did that work now?
Here we go. Come out weird then. Right. Here we go. Right. Here we go. Voice volume mixture. So the mix can be like that. So if I was to go like that, I can move a bit in, and it's sort of weird really how it works. And it sorts to bring my voice in and that voice in
at the same time. But if I can merge them in, merge it in like that.
So now, it'd be like that. It'd be like high pitched. Do you know what I mean?
So I turn on the 48, bit deeper, little bit. We can be in a cave, and we can be like that. Hello, right, and we got the sound effects and all. Right, there. Right there. Sound effects and everything right there. Got sound effects on. In a cave? Yeah, lost in a cave, mate. Right, so we turn right there. I don't know. Maybe up there or what. I ain't got a clue how that works. Turn it off. And then you got, I don't know why the trauma medic is like this. It's weird. Let's have a look. I'll show you how it works.
Right, so now this is the trauma medic. This is patrol. So you got the stage volume, background effects. So it's going up like that. Bravo 1 Sierra, Oscar 3. That's all the stuff we got. I also got a live radio station built into the thing as well. Built into my thing. I haven't used it for a long time. Also got this. There's some sad stuff going on, man. 4 hours ago, just watching news together. Let's see what's been going on. And I'll sort my mic out as well. Get this, alright.
On June 18th, 2023,
don't forget to subscribe to this channel as well.
Went missing in the international waters in the North Atlantic Ocean off the coast of Newfoundland, Canada. The submersible was on a tourist expedition to view the wreckage of the RMS Titanic with 5 individuals on board, including the founder and CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush. Due to the estimated 3 days of oxygen supply, there was a huge rescue effort by the US Coast Guard and Canada's Coast Guard, which was unsuccessful until early on June 22nd, when evidence of the wreckage of the vessel started to emerge, leading to the tragic conclusion that the vessel imploded in the ocean depths and there were no survivors. As an engineer, I'm furious about what happened and the different shortcuts that were taken. We'll go through all of that today. So let's try to figure out exactly what happened and what we can learn from this. I'm Ricky, and this is 2-Bit Da Vinci.
Turn on, I think, for it to work.
Let's start with what we know about the company operating the Titan submersible. OceanGate Incorporated is a privately held U.S. company operating out of Everett, Washington, that provides crewed submersibles for tourism, industry, and research and exploration. The company was founded in 2009 by Stockton Rush and Guillermo Solin. Stockton Rush wanted to be an astronaut, so he got his commercial pilot license. But because of bad eyesight, he could never be a military pilot. So instead, he moved from San Francisco to Seattle to work at McDonnell Douglas as a flight test engineer for the F-15 Eagle. After attending the launch of Spaceship One in the Mojave Desert in 2004, he decided he didn't want to go up to space as a tourist. He wanted to be like Captain Kirk on the Enterprise. He wanted to explore and pivoted his pursuit to undersea exploration. He was married to Wendy Rush, a descendant of Isidore and Ida Strauss, 2 people who actually passed away on the sinking of the Titanic, which ties into the story here today. The tragic events happened during a deep-sea tourism expedition to explore the wreckage of the Titanic, which sunk in the northern Atlantic in 1912. Before we get into the specifics of this particular tragedy, let's put just how difficult deep-sea exploration is into context. It's easy to be in awe of aviation and space exploration because breaking free of gravity and flying through the air seem like such a feat. But in many ways, deep-sea craft are the much greater engineering challenge. It all comes down to pressure. We don't think about air pressure because at sea level, it's just 14.7 pounds per square inch. That pressure is the result of the column of air that reaches above us all the way into outer space. All those air molecules above us pushing down result in that pressure. But water is a much more dense fluid than air. So for every 10 meters or 32.8 feet you dive, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere or 14.7 psi. The Titanic is sitting on the ocean floor at about 12,500 feet below sea level. The 2 broken parts of the ship, the bow and the stern, are more than 2,600 feet apart.
Basically for the channel, basically for the video, I mean, so this guy was related to the Strausses who originally died on the Titanic. So let's have a look and see what they say in a minute. I want to see.
So he got his commercial pilot license, but because of bad eyesight, he could never be a military pilot. So instead, he moved from San Francisco.
So the original guy, he couldn't be a pilot. That's why he did. That's why he did that job, because he couldn't he couldn't fly airplanes. He had bad eyesight.
To Seattle to work at McDonnell Douglas as a flight test
and work for McDonnell Douglas
engineer for the F-15 Eagle.
The F-15 Eagle. So we'll watch it here together.
For attending the launch.
Thank you for the 3,000 people
of Spaceship
3,600 odd viewers. Thank you.
One in the Mojave Desert in 2004, he decided he didn't want to go up to space as a tourist. He wanted to be like Captain Kirk on the Enterprise. He wanted to explore and pivoted his pursuit to undersea exploration. He was married to Wendy Rush, a descendant of Isidore and Ida Strauss, 2 people who actually passed.
So that's the people he was actually related to. Wait, let's go back a bit.
pursuit to undersea exploration. He was married to Wendy Rush, a
he was married to Wendy Rush, who is descendants of
descendant of Isidore and Ida Strauss, two people who actually passed away on the sinking of the Titanic, which ties into the story here today. The tragic events happened during a deep-sea tourism expedition to explore the wreckage of the Titanic, which sunk in the northern Atlantic in 1912. Before we get into the specifics of this particular tragedy, let's put just how difficult deep-sea exploration is into context. It's easy to be in awe of aviation and space exploration because breaking free of gravity and flying through the air seem like such a feat. But in many ways, deep-sea craft are the much greater engineering challenge. It all comes down to pressure. We don't think about air pressure because at sea level, it's just 14.7 pounds per square inch. That pressure is the result of the column of air that reaches above us all the way into outer space. All those air molecules above us pushing down result in that pressure. But water is a much more dense fluid than air. So for every 10 meters or 32.8 feet you dive, the pressure increases by 1 atmosphere or 14.7 psi. The Titanic is sitting on the ocean floor at about 12,500 feet below sea level. The two broken parts of the ship, the bow and the stern, are more than 2,600 feet apart and surrounded by debris after over 100 years of being in the bottom of the ocean. The wreckage is 400 miles off the coast of Newfoundland in Canada. You can see here. Let's put this depth into perspective. Imagine laying on your back with a 1 foot by 1 foot board, okay? And how much weight you would feel on that board. At 100 meters, the size of a soccer or football field, we have the pressure of 10 atmospheres or 145 psi, which means on that 1 by 1 foot board, we would feel the weight of 20,880 pounds. That is 4.7 Tesla Model Ys. At 381 meters, 1,250 feet, we have the height of the Empire State Building in New York City. At this depth, we would feel 37.4 atmospheres of pressure, and that 1 by 1 foot board would feel the weight of 80,000 pounds. At 490 meters, we have the max dive depth of the C-class of U.S. Navy submarine. Here, we'd feel 48.5 atmospheres of pressure. That 1 by 1 foot board would feel the weight of 94,800 pounds. At 828 meters, we have the height of the Burj Khalifa. Here, we'd feel 82 atmospheres. That weight on the board would be 173,520 pounds. Now, this is around the same depth as the deepest diving submarine in operation today, the Oscar-class submarine in the Russian Navy. At 3,800 meters sits the wreckage of the Titanic. Here, the pressures are 376 atmospheres. That 1 by 1 foot board on our chest would have the weight of 797,000 pounds. The OceanGate Titan was rated for a mass dive depth of about 4,000 meters. Now that might sound insane, but actually it's not even the record for the deepest human beings have been. That honor goes to James Cameron and the Deep Sea Challenger built in Australia in 2012. The Deep Sea Challenger reached the deepest part of the Mariana Trench in the Pacific Ocean, the deepest point on Earth, at a mind-boggling 11,000 meters or 36,000 feet. Here, we'd feel 1,090 atmospheres of pressure, and that 1 by 1 foot board would have the weight of 2.3 million pounds on it. Compare that to the difference in pressure of an airplane at cruising altitude of 36,000 feet, where outside the pressure might be 3 psi, and on the inside between 10 and 12. And that hopefully puts in perspective why more people have been to space than have been into parts of our oceans. Now let's talk about the red flags that plagued OceanGate. By the way, OceanGate just sounds like a walking scandal ready to happen. First, the design limitations of the Titan require that the hatch be bolted down by 17 to 18 bolts.
I don't know why this ain't working. Should be. I don't know why my camera ain't working. It's like, where's the camera? Should be working. Video capture. 0.2 seconds. 40 seconds. 844. 60 frames per second. Oh, that's the capture, isn't it? Put it on medium. Put it up to. Oh, that's instant replay. Sorry. So we'll go back on that. Done. Whoosh. Right. Right. Let's carry on with the video.
From the outside.
I also got to sort out the microphone as well. I've like literally got to change all that every time I come on here and do a live stream or thing. I've got to sort it all out. It does my nuts right in. Anyway, got to think people died, and got to think about their family and things like that. And it doesn't make a difference how much money you got. Do you know what I mean? You can't take it with you. So my prayers go out to the people who's like just lost their family. I just cannot imagine the pain and everything they're going through. No matter how much money they got, that will do nothing to you, but probably more than likely destroy you more, because of you just go and do silly choices when things happen in life. Been there, done it, but luckily I've never been silly. Anyway, let's carry on, watch the video.
This means there's no way for the passengers inside to open the hatch. They'd have to rely on ground crews to open it. Now, this is understandable because these deep sea vessels have to be incredibly tight. They have to be very strong. The water seals have to hold, and that's all complicated. But I think this shows you why it's really important to have backup systems and have some sort of an explosive detonation cord you can pull to blow the hatch in the event that the craft surfaced and no one found it. And that was actually one of the fears early on, is that the vessel could actually surface and be at the surface somewhere along the Atlantic unfound and still die from suffocating because they couldn't open the hatch and the air could run out.
Wow.
The Titan also didn't have GPS or other navigational instruments on board, and it didn't have a locator beacon either, like a black box on an aircraft. Most subs use GPS for near-surface navigation, which doesn't work in deeper waters. In deeper waters, they use dead reckoning course information obtained by the ship's gyro compass, measured speed, and estimates of local ocean currents. They also rely on inertial navigation systems, which is an estimated position source utilizing acceleration, deceleration, pitch, and roll from the computers that transmit this data. The Titan, in contrast, appeared to rely only on data provided by the surface support vessel. In 2019, OceanGate published a blog post explaining why the Titan was not certified by any ship authority, which is a huge red flag. OceanGate stated, "The vast majority of marine and aviation accidents are actually a result of operator error, not mechanical failure," and argued that classification focused solely on the physical state of the vessel and not the corporate actions, which are characterized as a constant committed effort and a focused corporate culture of maintaining high-level operational safety. That sounds like absolute bullshit to me. I'm sorry. Journalist David Progue, who rode on the Titan to view the Titanic in 2022, noted during his expedition, the surface support vessel lost track of the Titan for about 4 to 5 hours and mentioned that adding a locator beacon was actually discussed during this event. They could still send short text to the sub, but they had no idea where it was. It was quiet and very tense, he says, and they shut off the ship's internet to keep us from tweeting. Oh my God, that is terrifying.
Seriously?
And they've already known that this could happen. The craft was also controlled by a video game controller, which sounds like some cool Silicon Valley way of thinking, beanbag chairs and break rooms, but it's downright stupid.
It is.
Military spec products go through incredible rigorous testing, making them safe in all operating environments. For example, as expensive as Apple's Vision Pro headset is at $3,500, it is downright cheap compared to the $400,000 that it costs to get a helmet for the F-35 fighter jet. And the reason why, well, lower volumes, of course, but also because they have to go through unbelievable vibration testings to make sure the wells will all hold up, make sure that the higher levels of radiation at 40 to 50,000 feet won't do any damage long term, and to make sure absolute reliability. Now let's talk about how we got to the Titan. OceanGate started by purchasing Antipodes, which is a submersible back in 2012, which was their first test bed for testing and learning about this entire endeavor. Next, they built Cyclops 1, which is in collaboration with University of Washington's Applied Physics Laboratory. And this was a deeper sea vessel capable of reaching a max depth of 500 meters. Still nowhere near deep enough for the Titanic, but this was their next step and their next iteration. In the early design, the hull was made of carbon fiber, and the whole submersible would dive vertically with pivoting seats to ensure the passengers remained upright. Now, it was said that Boeing worked with OceanGate and the University of Washington on their initial design analysis, but we'll get back to that in a second because there's a little bit more to that story. Finally, they would arrive at the Titan, their final product that would actually be rated for 4,000 meters. One of the key takeaways about the Titan is that this is a carbon fiber and titanium hulled submersible. Now, this is really exotic in the world of materials. We've been using high strength steel aluminum for a long time, and we have data, engineering data on how they fail and what to look for and test methodologies. But carbon fiber is still quite exotic. In fact, any car you've ever driven probably doesn't have much carbon fiber in it. The only exceptions are really, really high-end supercars, or even in the case of aviation, more recently with the Boeing Dreamliner. But before that, we've always used aluminum and titanium and other materials like that. So just generally, there's less known about it, and it's also really difficult to make sure that you get it right. OceanGate signed a contract with Spencer Composites in January 2017 for the carbon composite cylinder. This was the same company that built the composite pressure hull for the single-person deep flight Challenger for Steve Fossett. After Fossett passed away, Deep Flight Challenger was acquired by Richard Branson's Virgin Oceanic, which had announced plans to conduct a series of 5 dives to the deepest points of the ocean. But Deep Flight refused to endorse the plan as the craft had been designed to dive only once. This is important. We'll get back to this in a second. In a statement, they said the problem is the strength of the Deep Flight Challenger does decrease after each dive. It's strongest on the first dive, said Adam Wright, the firm's president. It was designed to set the record, dive to the deeps, and then be retired as an exhibit in the Smithsonian. This is a really crucial part because sometimes in engineering, what it comes down to is the operational lifetime and understanding it. And this might have been at play here. And by the way, I tried to go to oceangate.com to get a little more information, and I noticed that their site was taken down on June 22nd. So after the disappearance of the Titan in 2023, the University of Washington stated that APL, their Applied Physics Laboratory, had no involvement in design, engineering, or testing of the Titan submersible. A Boeing spokesperson also said that Boeing was not a partner on the Titan and did not design or build it. A NASA spokesperson said that NASA's Marshall Space Flight Center had a Space Act agreement with OceanGate, but did not conduct testing and manufacturing via its workforce or facilities. Basically, all of these partnerships that they had are now being revealed that they were not really partnerships. This is a classic example of a company trying to get credibility by partnering with NASA. How good does that sound? But what exactly they did with NASA isn't really well understood. It could have just been as simple as, hey, can we rent out a little bit of space over in this corner of your facility? This is probably the most infuriating for me as an engineer. David Lockridge, the OceanGate Director of Marine Operations, filed a quality control report in January 2018, stating that no non-destructive testing, or NDI, of the carbon fiber hull had taken place to check for voids or delaminations in the carbon fiber layup that could compromise the hull's strength. NDI, non-destructive investigation, NDT, non-destructive testing, is a way of checking something to make sure it's safe without actually breaking it apart, because really the best way to check if something is safe is to cut it in half, break it, and go, yep, it's safe. But of course, you've destroyed the product. So NDT is something that engineers lean on all the time to make sure things are safe. And in the world of carbon fiber, it's that much more difficult because carbon fiber doesn't bend or yield or get grooves and cracks the way other materials do. It requires a lot of information and insight. Lockridge was told that OceanGate would rely on the real-time acoustic monitoring system, which he felt would not warn the crew of potential failure with sufficient time to safely abort the mission and evacuate. The day after he filed his report, he was summoned to a meeting in which he was told the acrylic window that you look out of was only rated for 1,300 meters because OceanGate would not fund the design of a window rated for 4,000 meters. In that meeting, he reiterated his concerns and added that he would refuse to allow crew testing without a hull scan. Lockridge was dismissed from his position as a result. OceanGate filed a lawsuit against Lockridge that June, accusing him of improperly sharing proprietary trade secrets and fraudulently manufacturing a reason to get rid of him. This suit was settled in November 2018. I'm sure it was all sealed off and we'll never know exactly what was agreed upon, but that is absolutely terrifying. During a human-piloted descent on December 10th, 2018, Stockton Rush used the vertical thrusters to overcome unexpected positive buoyancy when descending past 10,000 feet. These submersibles are like a balloon with air inside, right? So it's hard for them to dive. And so they have different ways and ballast systems to be able to accomplish that. But for whatever reason, around 10,000 feet, he had to use vertical thrusters to continue his descent.
Terrible.
And when this happened, it caused interference with the communication systems between spinning propellers.
Bad people, man. It's rich robbing the rich. Literally. That's what it is. That's what it's about. It's basically robbing, like the rich robbing the rich. And that's what they're doing. You wouldn't think another person who's like a millionaire would want to like sort of rob you. I don't think he's obviously done it intentionally. Obviously that's obviously obvious. But looking at it all, if I would have knew that, I would have never set foot on it. Not for free. Wow. The only thing I would go on is like a Navy submersible or something like that. Like the one they bought off of Russia and stuff like that when they went down to the Titanic. Because when they went down to the Titanic, like when that happened, the Russians never had a submersible to go down and rescue their people. They didn't want the States or any other government to go to the Kursk to look at the submarine because it was the only one what didn't show up at the time on radar. And so anyway, cut a long story short, they ended up dying because of like secrets and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, they couldn't go down there because they sold their submersible, the Russians did, to the Titanic Foundation place or whatever it's called, and for the guy to go down and see the Titanic and the people. That's way before anyone went down there and like paid to get on there or whatever. But yeah, that's the only thing I would get on. So basically, obviously this is going to open a lot of people. Like when people's got money, you could like say you're a billionaire and you've got another billionaire sat by you and they've got a business. You're going to think, oh, he's got it all proper and it's all done good. But it's not the case. It's a shame. It's playing with people's lives, and I reckon whoever's responsible for this, it should be done for, well, you should be accountable for murder. It is actually murder in my eyes. It is literally not done on purpose, but it's a very bad, terrible thing. It's horrible. I can't imagine to even just seconds or even just milliseconds. It doesn't make a difference how fast it was. It's just the principle of, like, I ain't going to say, obviously, what would have, like, imploded. So just think about that. Do you know what I mean? Just think of someone who you love. Would you let them be in it wasn't even a steel thing. It was made out of that stuff. And people didn't trust it. Why the governments didn't look into it and stop it, I do not know why. Yeah, they could have used it once or twice, not like, I don't know how many times you used it until this happens, I haven't got a clue, but let's carry on. This makes me feel sick.
The disturbance in the wake of the water coming off those propellers and everything else, they lost contact for 1 hour. Now, Rush was thrilled to call himself the second person to solo dive to 13,000 feet after James Cameron. But if that was me, I would be terrified. I would come back and figure out what on earth happened with the comms and what can we do? Can we change the frequency? Can we have a backup system? Can we have a tether? Whatever has to happen to never let that happen again. And we know it happened again because of that report from the reporter. After these tests were completed in January 2020, the hull of the Titan began showing signs of cyclical fatigue, and the craft was derated to 3,000 meters. Now, the hull was repaired and again rated again for 4,000 meters of diving depth. But by who? And was everything done properly? It's impossible to know. I decided to make this video because I think we're at the precipice of a new age of...
Well, this is where they've got to look into this and stop it. Because it is going to stop now. This is going to stop the tourism trade into space, going down to the sea, places like that. People... I don't know. I know that people got goals. They want to go to the places what's very, very dangerous and where no other man's been before. Well, there's been more people in space than there has at the bottom of the sea. So that's a fact. It's true, and there you go. It's what people go for that thing, don't they? Like going to places where no other people go in the world. So they've gone and done that instead of getting into one of these. They've probably already been in one of these. I'm not quite sure. I've not looked into that, but it's so. No matter, like I've seen a lot of people comments and say, "Oh, they had money, they had this, they got that, they had a good life." It doesn't make a difference. It doesn't make no difference what they had. They've lost their life, and you know what I mean. You can't put money to life. You can't do that. You cannot put any amount of money to a life, no matter who you are on this planet. We're all the same, and your family, our families are all the same. There's no difference between a rich man and a poor man or anything. I count everyone as the same. The same as colour. I count everyone as the same in that principle. Different wherever you live in the world. I count everyone the same. That's how I am. But that's me. That's what's been put in my head, like since I was born. So anyway, I don't know. It's just it's got to stop. They've got to. If it doesn't do the guidelines. You shouldn't be able to give someone a backhander, basically give someone a bit of money under the table to let it go through and proceed. If anything, it should have been something like James Cameron would go on, not something like that. That's just absolutely ridiculous. Even when they interviewed James Cameron, he was saying that he had concerns, but he never said anything because he didn't know the full thing of all about it, and plus he was doing a movie at the time when it was all being built and all that sort of stuff. You have to look into it. It's not his fault, but obviously he can't like look into everything. It's not his It's not I'm not trying to stick up for not sticking up for no one, but I'm just saying basically they interviewed him because he's the first person to go down and see Titanic, and basically found it and stuff like that. And plus another thing happened as well. They didn't just go down to see Titanic. There's a side mission for something else. Look that up. Honestly, it's a true story that. But alongside of everything, it's sad. And plus, like he says, if you go into what he says, it says it all really to what he says. Anyway, I'll let you make your minds up on that and whatever it is. And basically, I'll get my camera. I have got a camera fixed, but I can't get it to do properly. I want to do stuff like this because I would like to do this sort of stuff and have a bit of input. What you think? What you think about all this stuff? I know exactly what a lot of people think is absolutely stinkingly horrible stuff. I'm not just going to do doom and gloom stuff. I want to put some videos up on here and obviously do it the right way, the correct way, and do it properly, you know. And probably make another YouTube channel, I think, because the channel is like a gaming channel I do, but I would like to do something like this more if I could. I don't know. That's something what I would like to do anyway. Just carry on to do what we are on here.
Exotic tourism and exploration, between going to the space to go to the moon, low Earth orbit, or deep sea diving. We're at the edge of seeing more of this. Wealthier people, the people that were involved in this particular incident, always want to have that next thing. And so if we're going to do this, it's important to realize just how unsafe this can be. Unlike commercial aviation, there are no regulatory boards involved here. This is international water. The company did have to register the parent vessel that takes people from Canada, right? So that had to be registered. But what happens out in open waters is not very highly regulated. This is a really tough story for me because as an engineer, I do love ambition. I mean, building your own vessel, carbon fiber 5 inches thick, it sounds cool. But as an engineer, I also realize how important safety measures and protocols are. Aviation is a perfect example. If you ever hop on an airplane, you cannot imagine how safe you are because of all the people involved, from company members like Boeing and Airbus, personnel, engineering, test officials, all the way to the FAA and other regulatory approval bodies that make sure every little thing is regulated and controlled. There is none of that going on here. One of the first things to realize about an implosion of the vessel is that there was probably not a lot of suffering. The people probably just died instantly. We mentioned how much weight you would feel at these depths, and you would pretty much just get crushed. So what happened is they built a vessel which was in and of itself pretty impressive. The carbon fiber layup, the composite structure, titanium. This was an exotic craft, and it had a viewing window to go see the Titanic. These are things that human beings could not do before. But the problem is every craft, every vessel, every engineering device has an operational lifetime. Now, the way engineers do this is by testing something and figuring out how many cycles can we hit this with before problems start to emerge. And then they add a safety factor. For example, your car will work almost forever. There's no pressure involved. It's just atmospheric pressures at sea level, right? Now, if it rusts and things, that could change the equation. But your car is fine. How about aircraft? Aircraft are pressurized and depressurized, pressurized, depressurized, right? And you can't really inspect every little nook and cranny. So what engineers figured out is if we're going to build this out of aluminum, if we're going to build it from carbon fiber, we have to do a test every 1,000 hours, 500 hours, whatever the case might be. A complete overhaul where they tear down the wall panels and inspect, and they'll actually get out and check for any cracks and other impurities and imperfections, because any crack or any little divot can be a stress concentration point where it'll start to impound and fail. Then finally, they'll say at this many hours, 20,000 flat hours, whatever the number might be, the aircraft is retired. That doesn't mean it's going to fall apart, but we know we tested it for millions of hours and nothing bad will happen in this window. And that is the operational window. Odds are a plane could probably fly for thousands more flights after that, but we don't want to do that. That is the operational lifetime. What was the operational lifetime of the Titan? Was it ever established?
2 times. If that, or 3 or 4, not is what they did. Well, I don't know.
They were not doing NDIs or NDTs, non-destructive testing, to see what was happening to the carbon fiber. Again, carbon fiber is a mesh weave that is laid in alternating patterns and then glued up. It is incredibly strong and incredibly impressive as an engineering material, but it's equally not as well studied. We have 100 years of history and experience with high-strength steel, aluminum, and other materials, but this is a new frontier. And that's why this is so important to cover. New frontiers are exciting. They're sexy. They're glamorous, right? Air travel. We're on the brink of space tourism where rich people can buy a ticket to go up and tour around the moon, have a nice little catered lunch, and come home. Whenever we have new frontiers, we have unknowns. That's what makes it a frontier. There's not a playbook. And when you have to build vessels able to withstand the pressures of the ocean's deep, deep waters, there's a lot that is unknown. And that's why we don't have commercial versions of this. I think this vessel just had some sort of a crumple or some...
Exactly. There is no commercial versions of that. Full stop.
Defect or deformation. Something was happening over a couple of cycles. I mean, they did successfully go down and come back three times. And at the 4th time, they crumpled. Honestly, I don't think any vessel that goes to the Mariana Trench or 12,000 feet in the Atlantic should have a life more than a couple of cycles. And I think what they were trying to do, I think Stockton Rush was trying to make these...
That was exactly what I said just before when we were like here on the video, and that's what I said. It's 1 or 2 times, and I said that like quite a few through the video.
Tickets affordable, right? Now they started at $125,000, double that by the time these guys went on at $250,000, right? $250,000 sounds like a ton of money. The real price for this probably should have been $1 million, 1.5. That allows you to replace the vessel every so often.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And when I realised it was 250,000 grand, yeah, it's dodgy. It's dodgy as anything. The people who had the money and paid for it, I don't know. They obviously misleaded massively and didn't look into it. But one of the people were lucky and didn't go in there. He had a last minute fault and he was lucky. He didn't go in there, but obviously someone else took his place. I don't know who it would have been, but sadly, no matter who, like it happened, didn't it? So it's so sad. Honestly, it really, really sad.
Often, or to do complete disruptive testing to replace parts, there's a whole slew of things that have to happen. But I think, in the interest of trying to be affordable, being on the ship yourself, the prestige of your reputation, trying to build a brand, trying to build a company, they took all kinds of shortcuts and did things they do not understand. And I'll be honest with you, we know more about space than we do our deep oceans or the deep earth. These are just really, really hard environments to get to. This is tragic. You know, I was an optimist. I was hoping that we would find them somewhere and that this would all kind of be a learning lesson without...
I really thought that as well. That's the messed up thing about it. I really thought, like, nah, this can't happen, surely. But when I started hearing about it, was like, made of this, made of that. It had camping lights put in their mind. It had, like, a Logitech controller. Oh, my gosh. Seriously, it's absolutely ridiculous. Because of, like, it's like me putting, like, an Xbox One controller on a shuttle or something. I don't know. You wouldn't do it, would you? You know what I mean? You don't do that sort of thing. That's just like, if I seen that and I got into something like that, and it was like, I don't know, but I don't know. That's me personally. But like I said, people, like, it's basically rich, basically conning the rich. Basically, that's what they've done. That's what they've done. They knew it wasn't safe. They're taking chances and bending rules here and there, left, right, and centre, making it all go quiet under the rug because of, like, no one else said anything about it. They've only said about it now. Now it's happened, but it's a bit late now, isn't it?
Loss of life. It didn't work out that way. But in engineering, we have to always learn from our mistakes.
And
if you're a believer,
no one has said that. Do you know what I mean? They're all saying about it now. Oh, that's got camping stuff. What you said about it before on telly or something. But it's scared of being sued. But they're billionaires. They could have said something. They could have said something live on telly or something and said, look, this is not safe, something's going to happen. I've never heard nothing about it on the telly. So, or even on the internet. So this is what's really sickening, because it's absolutely outrageous. It's like really terrible. It shouldn't be the case. That should have never happened in this like day and age. Seriously, it's absolutely appalling.
And freedom, and these people took the risk. They knew what they were doing. I do agree with that. I'm a believer of freedom and
They took the risk. Listen, they didn't know. I can't believe that they knew. If they knew everything what we know now, they would have never got on that. I can guarantee that. I know if you don't know what they were told. You don't know what some stupid information were given to them. Obviously you got to sign a waiver, like when they get onto it. Oh, this may happen, you may die or whatever when you go into the Titanic. Yeah, that's obvious. But come on,
taking your own risk or taking your own choices. But did they fully understand what this vessel was? Was it fully known?
There you go. He's gonna say what I just said now.
Were the risks really well known to them? Probably not.
Yeah,
so those are things that we can try to improve upon. And maybe the next time somebody comes up with this idea to do deep ocean exploration, there's better methodology in place.
Don't forget to go over to the dude here and subscribe to this guy here, Lisa, when he's done all the stuff. Very good video, and thank you, Javan, for liking some of my stuff, my man. Right, right. Let's have a look, see what else is going on around the world. Right. This was a test. That's the sort of thing what I would want to be in, is something like that. What do you, right, what's the one, right, Titanic. Sub. Sub. I don't want any implosion. Right. Submersible model sinking. No, don't want that. Right. James Cameron. There you go. Alright, so let's see, is sub. Alright. Now let's see what he's got to say. And like I said,
I think I was unaware that they weren't certified. This poor.
wait out. It's got to do the speed a little bit. Have I got it done? Yeah, I have. It's a bit, right. Don't want to get in trouble and all that. Anyway, yeah, let's put it on maximum. Wait out. No, thank you.
Poor. I mean, his father and son on Father's Day, paid $500,000 to go down in this thing. Holy crap. It's just tragic, and it's horrific, and it's unnecessary. There are acoustic networks around. Some are research, some are intelligence. We got confirmation within an hour that there had been a loud bang at the same time that that comms were lost. A loud bang on the hydrophones. Loss of transducer or transponder.
I bet as soon, like, he knows all about submarines, yeah? Now, as soon as I knew that they heard a bang, but they heard a bang days before mine. And basically, I'm not no, what do you call it? I'm not no engineer what knows about like engineering and all that sort of stuff. I know like about cars or whatever, little bits, not a lot, but a little bit. But common sense, like a submarine or something like that, what I've seen and what I've heard, if something goes bang underwater, that means it's imploded. And I don't know if he's going to say this. I don't know if he's going to say what I said or what, because he's basically #1 person who knows all about submersibles. He's bought the submersible from Russia, that one what went down and see the Titanic in the 1980s. I watched it when I was a kid on a little portable TV, and yeah, that's why I've always liked the thing about Titanic, but. Yeah, I mean, I think it's about time now we stop going down there and looking at it. Right, it's a graveyard, to be honest. Now I've got older, I understand it's like basically, you know what I mean. It's just It is what it is. I don't know. Everyone's got their own views, and I don't want to put any views out there because of like, you know what I mean? I just, it is what, like, anyway, it's all about this. It's about the people who's passed away and things like that, and it's just sad. And I just want to get down to the bottom of the truth of it. It should not have happened. And let's see if he says the same.
Loss of comms. I knew what happened. Sub imploded. I sent emails to everybody I know. I said, we've lost some friends.
Exactly. See? He's like, I don't know nothing about engineering, but he just says it himself. So there you go.
The sub has imploded. It's on the bottom in pieces right now. I sent that out Monday morning. You know, we may go into...
He said that Monday morning. So literally, I was sat and I watched it on telly myself, and I thought, you know what? It's like they could hear like banging, and it's like a couple. And I thought, no, it ain't someone tapping. They heard an explode, like implosion, right? That's what I thought to myself. I'm no engineer. I don't know about submarines, submersibles. My granddad, basically, his finger, anyway, from the thingy, and he lost a finger from a submarine anyway. But anyway, cut long story short, I know only about submarines because of my granddad was on a submarine and like used to like work with them and things like that when he was in the war. So like World War II and all that. So anyway, just carry on, see what he's got to say, and see if he merges up to what I thought. And obviously the public is thinking as well, all the way around the world.
Hazardous environments like hydrothermal vents, or even to a wreck like Titanic or Bismarck or some of the other wreck sites, which are dangerous from an entanglement standpoint or a collapse, a structural collapse standpoint. But you never worry about the vehicle, the platform that you're in, you know, and you certainly don't worry about implosion. There's never been an implosion. You know, I never believed in that technology of wound carbon fiber, you know, wound filament cylindrical hull. I thought it was a horrible idea. I wish I'd spoken up, you know, but I assumed somebody was smarter than me, you know, because I'd never experimented with that technology, but it just sounded bad on its face because we make pressure hulls out of contiguous material, steel, titanium, ceramic, acrylic. And so you can...
There you go. Come out. Like I said on the other video, it's exactly, he knows what would happen, and I'm no engineer, like I said it 1,000 times in respect, but yeah, like, yeah, I don't know. Why, he just said it himself, why don't I say anything? Basically, in so many words, not his fault, but he's the man of the stuff of the submarine submersibles to the Titanic. He's the man who's was the one who went down there.
Model it. You can do finite element analysis of it.
Though.
And, you know, you understand the yield properties. You understand the number of cycles that it can take. But you can't do that with a composite material because it's two dissimilar materials, you know, sort of bonded together. And so we all knew that the danger was delamination and progressive failure over time with microscopic water ingress and fatigue, what they call cycling fatigue. And we knew that if the sub passed its pressure test, it wasn't going to fail on the first dive. It might fail on dive 7, or I don't know what they're at. You know.
What I want to know, what was the, like, I know that they said something about 3,000 is what they done as a test, but did they do the full length of the Titanic and it went okay? Like, basically, obviously went down there and been okay a few times. I don't know how many times it went down. I've only just watched the news and things like that the other day. I've not gone on the YouTube channels whatsoever and looked at any of this. So I'm just wondering and thinking, what did they test the depth-wise? I'm just wondering if he's going to say this as well. I'm just wondering. If not, I'm going to go on to another video and I'm going to try and look, and we can all speculate together. And I know that we can't bring people back, but we can stop this from happening again to any people. It don't make a difference if they're rich, poor, or whatever. It's lives. People's lives you're playing with. It's not good.
You know, but it's going to fail over time, which is insidious. You don't get that with steel or with titanium.
Alright. So that was off them. Lost legs, right. Let's go over this minute. Let's go on another one. Right, put a like on that. subscribe to that. Right. Let's have a look. I'm surprised that James Cameron is so technically competent. Heard some legitimately intelligent explosion on naval architecture, materials, and mechanical engineering. Is it marine techniques? Fairly impressed. That was from Pickham, wherever you described the name. Anyway, if you want to go and give that a subscribe, like, share it if you want it too. Right, let's have a look. This is another one, CTV News. So if you smash out to them and let's see what's going on there.
Google now represents over 40%.
Wait there. I got to mute that because of it's an ad. Right, here we go.
What it was doing. I think that's pretty clear. I wish I had been more vocal about that, but I think I was unaware that they weren't certified. Because I wasn't really studying it. I wasn't really interested. Stockton Rush asked me if I wanted to go out there and dive this season. You know, I wasn't interested. Because I wasn't really studying it. I wasn't really interested. Stockton Rush asked me if I wanted to go out there and dive this season. You know, I wasn't interested. This father and son on Father's Day, you know, paid $500,000 to go down in this thing. Holy crap. You know, it's just tragic, and it's horrific, and it's unnecessary. And by the way, it's not lost on me as
do you know what? I totally forgot about that. Father's Day as well. Oh.
As somebody who studied the meaning of Titanic, it's greater meaning to us, you know, historically and societally, that it's about warnings that were ignored. That ship's lying at the bottom of the ocean, not because of the nature of its steel or the nature of its compartments, but just because of bad seamanship. The captain was warned. There were icebergs ahead. It was a moonless night, and he plowed ahead for whatever reason. I think there was some greed. There was some glory in it. He had to boot up his rear from J. Bruce Ismay to get into New York on time or early, so they'd have a headline, which I show in the film. Yeah.
But the same as happened again with people's greed and people's boot, as he just said. And like I'm saying, it's happened again, but obviously it's not a ship what's gone down. It's a submersible going to look at the Titanic. It's not a naval one. It's not like how it should be properly done or anything like that. Like he said, it should be like £1.5 million each to go on there, not £2,500, £250,000 each. Which, yeah, you think that's a lot. It's not a lot of money at all. Like, obviously, I thought it was about 2 million or 3 million to go down and see it. That's what I thought. When I found out it was like 250 grand, I thought, no, that's not right. Don't sound right at all. Like I said, and I keep saying, I'm not an engineer, but I'm no idiot. It just flashes warning lights and everything else.
You know, and here we are again, and at the same place.
There you go.
You know, now there's one wreck lying next to the other wreck for the same damn reason. Search. 4 days of search. They're searching everywhere. They were running around with their hair on fire. The sub was right where it was. It was literally on the seafloor below its last known position, which is the first place you look in a search is the last known position. You don't go running around all over the landscape with planes and trains and automobiles searching, right? It was right where it was when it imploded, and I knew that's where they were going to find it. So you search, first place you look is the last known position, and that's where it is. So there was ultimately never a search. And that ROV was only in the water for about 3 hours before they found it. So what does that mean? They went to the last known position, they looked on the sonar, they saw a clump that was never there before, and they drove over to it, and there it was. It's pretty much that simple, right? So, you know, all of this has just been people running around waving their arms with their hair on fire for 4 days straight. And I just feel terrible for what the families must have been going through during.
I do as well. I feel absolutely terrible for them as well. Like, you know what I mean? It's just so sickening. It's happened all over again. Greed.
During that time. And that then goes back to why the authorities chose to not say what they knew. Begs a question now, doesn't it?
Yeah, why do you think they didn't?
I do not want to speculate.
Jim,
well, I can speculate all day long, but I am not going to say it out loud.
Right.
Look, Monday morning when I first found out about the incident, got on a whole bunch of calls and emails. It's a small community. Within an hour and a half, I had the following information. They were on descent. They were at 3,500 feet. They lost comms and tracking. The last one being.
Oh, just gonna subscribe. Yes, absolutely terrible. There's people there you subscribe to. Courtesy of them, and plus I speeded it up a bit. Right, here we go.
Being the critical one, because the transponder that's used to track a sub during descent and on the bottom is a fully autonomous system. It's in its own pressure housing, and it has its own battery power. So for them to lose comms and tracking at the same time, sub was gone. There was no question in my mind. For days, I tried to run other scenarios that could account for it. I could come up with nothing. So the next thing I did was contacted a few more people and managed to track down, there are acoustic networks around. Some are research, some are intelligence. We got confirmation within an hour that there had been a loud bang at the same time that that comms were lost. A loud bang on the hydrophones, loss of transducer or transponder, loss of comms. I knew what happened. Sub imploded. I sent emails to everybody I know. I said, we've lost some friends. The sub has imploded. It's on the bottom in pieces right now. I sent that.
He said that on Monday, like we watched on the video.
That out Monday morning. We never expected to see a scenario like this.
Huh.
We may go into hazardous environments like hydrothermal vents, or even to a wreck like Titanic or Bismarck or some of the other wreck sites, which are dangerous from an entanglement standpoint or a structural collapse standpoint.
What I heard as well, one of them got stuck in the propellers, mind. I don't know if that video's been taken down or what. They want to cover it up or whatever. What they're investigating, because obviously you're going to investigate a lot of stuff because of this, is what's going on. But basically, I don't know if you heard. Basically, I don't know if this same submersible got stuck in the propellers of the Titanic. I don't know if it's this one or another one. I'm not quite sure. We'll have a look in a minute. But I've heard that. I've heard of it. So I'm going to have a look, and we'll all look together. And if you come onto the channel and stuff like that and see this up, have a discussion, put a comment below what you think and all that sort of stuff. I can imagine what you're going to put. It's absolutely horrendous and horrible. I am doing this not for get subscribers or anything like that. I've always been passionate about Titanic. I love Titanic. My granddad and my nan always talked about it. One of the family members was on that. Obviously it was like years ago, wasn't it? But it was, I can't remember now. But anyway, my granddad always used to talk about it and cry. And that's why I'm into that's why I like watching the things about anything about Titanic. It's basically done a full circle, isn't it? It's been 100 odd years or so, and look what's happened. Or I think it's 100 years or something like that. I can't remember now. But it's happened again. It's like rich, ripping off the rich and stuff like that. But like I said, £250,000, considering it would be like 1.5 million to go on a submersible with this dude here, right? Or what? It'd probably be 2.5 million if you went down with him. Or probably 3, because obviously it would be the best of the best. The man's probably insured to Evans because of he makes great films and he's a good guy. So anyway, let's carry on and see what we look through. I'd be interested to what you got to say. Let's carry on and fish it. Sorry, pardon the punt. Fish it through. Right, let's have a look through and see what we see and what's going on.
But you never worry about the vehicle, the platform that you're in, and you certainly don't worry about implosion. There's never been an implosion of a vehicle with people in it. And so I think I don't want to say it blindsided the community, because there was a lot of concern. And by the community, I mean people who operate subs and build subs for a living. There was a lot of concern about this outfit and this sub. A lot of concern, even to the extent that I wasn't involved in it because I was making Avatar 2 at the time, but a lot of them got together and wrote a letter to.
Yeah, I read about that he was doing the film of Avatar, and basically, he heard something, but he never expressed anything about it publicly, because he thought there was bigger people out there who would have obviously not let it go down if it wasn't worthy enough to go down, and like it was dangerous and stuff like that, because obviously there's going to be like very rich people or whatever. Like if it's 250,000 pound, it's like they say, if something's too cheap, if something's if it sounds too good, it's not going to be 100%, is it? It always boils down to that, and it's what's happened here, unfortunately. And my prayers and everything go out to the family. It really does.
To OceanGate and said, you have to certify. You cannot take people down. It's irresponsible, and it could lead to catastrophe. Literally, the word catastrophe is in the letter, and I think that letter's been made public. All those signatories have come off, but you know, I never believed in that technology of wound carbon fiber, you know, wound filament cylindrical hull. I thought it was a horrible idea. I wish I'd spoken up, you know, but I assumed somebody was smarter than me, you know, because I'd never experimented with that technology, but it just sounded bad on its face, because we make pressure hulls out of contiguous material: steel, titanium, ceramic, acrylic. And so you can model it, you can do finite element analysis of it, and you know, you understand the yield properties, you understand the number of cycles that it can take. But you can't do that with a composite material, because it's two dissimilar materials, you know, sort of bonded together. And so we all knew that the danger was delamination and progressive failure over time, with microscopic water ingress and fatigue, what they call cycling fatigue. And we knew that if the sub passed its pressure test, it wasn't going to fail on the first dive. It might fail on dive 7, or I don't know what they're at, you know, but it's going to fail over time, which is insidious. You don't get that with steel or with titanium. But you know, sometimes people get go fever, you know. And look, we celebrate innovation, right? But you shouldn't be using an experimental vehicle for paying passengers that aren't themselves deep ocean engineers.
Exactly what he just said is dying to what he just said. Is literally smashed it on the bed. That is literally, well, put it in so many words. You couldn't have put it any better. Right, we're going to go on this one. This is from CTV News, in Canada's most watched news organisation, both locally and nationally, as a network of national, international, and local news operations. Here we go. Introduction. Hey. Right, sorry. It's a ad. Right, here we go.
A submersible operated by OceanGate went missing in the international waters
It's
in the
speeded
North
up a
Atlantic
little
Ocean
bit.
off the coast.
It's speeded up a little bit. So what we're going to do, we're going to have a look at this and see what you think about it. We're going to look at a few things. There's no point looking at one or two, or just one or two. You've got to look at a few. To, like, I sort of get a grasp now that things, like corners were cut, and we obviously know that now. And it's a bloody shame that it's happened. It's absolutely disgraceful. And that's like I said, art goes out to the family, and I can't say it any more than I have. My heart really goes out to all of the family out there. Like, nothing can replace anybody's, like, dad, mum, brother or sister. You know, you can't replace that. It's just unreplaceable. Money cannot replace it, no matter how rich or whatever you are in this world. And it's a shame.
Of Newfoundland, Canada. The submersible was on a tourist expedition to view the wreckage of the RMS Titanic, with 5 individuals on board, including the founder and CEO of OceanGate, Stockton Rush. Due to the estimated 3 days of...
But what I would like is a bit of feedback, so you can comment and things like that. I'm not making no money from this. I wouldn't do if I had the chance to. I wouldn't even do it, because this would be blood money, and I don't want that. I'm streaming this because the more people what gets onto this, stop this phony stuff happening to other people, no matter how rich or whatever lovely successful lives they got. They deserve it. They work for it. So at the end of the day, just be logical and think out of the box, because of, like, it doesn't make a difference what like, they've got millions of pounds and they're billionaires or whatever. It doesn't make a difference. It could be someone who's like got a couple of million and thought, right, I'll pay like $500,000 to take me and my son down on Father's Day. It's probably from his son, probably his mum giving them, oh, take your dad down to the Titanic. He loves the Titanic. But we found out one of the people was related to two of the people who died on the Titanic. So there you go. So like I said about my grandfather, said about someone in his family and something like that on my granddad's side, but I've never really looked into that. That'd be something I would like to look into. But he was like, they weren't rich people or anything like that. They basically were on there, or I think it was one person, I can't remember, I don't know now, but my granddad always used to cry, and that's why it's always been imprinted in my head about Titanic. So there you go. Let's carry on and do this.
Of oxygen supply, there was a huge rescue effort by the U.S. Coast Guard and Canada's Coast Guard, which was unsuccessful until early on June 22nd, when evidence of the wreckage of the vessel started to emerge, leading to the tragic conclusion that the vessel imploded in the ocean depths and there were no survivors. As an engineer,
Right, we have watched this. I'm so sorry. Go on to something totally different. Not different, but you know, like 14 hours ago, one day, a few hours, like one day. Let's have a look.
Ready? Flicks it. It's a sign.
Right, let's turn it down and let's skip it.
An ROV, or remote operated vehicle, from the vessel Horizon Arctic discovered the tail cone of the Titan submersible approximately 1,600 feet from the bow of the Titanic on the seafloor. The ROV subsequently found additional debris. In consultation with experts from within the Unified Command, the debris is consistent with the catastrophic loss of the pressure chamber. Upon this determination, we immediately notified the families. So the question was, is there any question as to whether or not the sub collided with the Titanic or whether it imploded above and debris field created from that? So the location of the Titan submersible was in an area that was approximately 1,600 feet from the wreck of the Titanic. I have an expert here that is familiar with that area and can talk about the debris field and what the debris field indicates in terms of where the casualty may have occurred.
Rear Admiral, really quickly, can you tell me when that massive fleet will be called back?
Thank you, Admiral. So the question is, where does the wreck lie in relation to the Titanic? I didn't hear the Admiral's answer. I think 1,600 feet. Was that correct, Admiral?
Yep, you got it.
So that's off the bow of Titanic. It's in an area where there is not any debris of Titanic. It is a smooth bottom. To my knowledge and anything I've seen, there's no Titanic wreckage in that area. And again, 200 plus meters from the bow, and consistent with the location of last communication for an implosion in the water column. And the size of the debris field is consistent with that implosion in the water column.
There you go. Underwater implosion column. They knew then. So that's why they got in contact with the family and stuff like that. So it was an implosion, like it says there. And don't forget to subscribe to these channels, not mine. There. But yeah, it's sad, man. It's really sad. Like, they already knew, so obviously, there you go.
In terms of the timing here, you say that this was a catastrophic implosion. And I know it's early on, but is it your estimation that this happened right at the moment when they lost contact, an hour and 45 minutes after the descent?
So the question was about the timing of the catastrophic implosion. Right now, it is too early to tell with that. We know that as we've been prosecuting this search over the course of the last 72 hours and beyond, that we've had sonar buoys in the water nearly continuously and have not detected any catastrophic events when those sonar buoys have been in the water.
Now let's bring in Stefano Brizzolara. He is an ocean engineering expert and co-director of the Virginia Virginia Tech Center for Marine Autonomy and Robotics. Stefano, I'm really glad to be talking to you because you actually have a basis for understanding this that the rest of us don't have. First of all, just tell us about your immediate reaction to this tragedy. And when you hear the consistent with a catastrophic implosion, given the pressure that was on this vehicle and your understanding of engineering and robotics and marine exploration, what additional insights can you provide for us?
Yeah, unfortunately, the failure of the pressure hull was probably the first hypothesis that could be done. This is something that may well happen at those pressure that you experience at those depths. You must consider that at 4,000 meters depth, the pressure...
Let's read that. 5 major pieces of sub-debris sprang. Bodies of 5 crew may not be recovered. Debris consistent with implosion of Vessels. Sub-debris sprang near wreckage of Titanic, which we said is by the bow. Noises detected may not be linked. That's probably just something else. I like it. I subscribe to it. Whoever is a... Right, like this person said, whoever is a cyclist, like me and have had carbon fiber bikes. Now that you have to have regularly check your bike for micro cracks on the fork. Carbon can be very strong and light, but with time it fatigues in extreme conditions and will show micro cracks before failing. I'm sure the owner of this submersible never cared about the supervision of the carbon structure, thinking that carbon strength and durability was endless. I think he's probably right, and 100% right, and yes. So much from modern manufacturing. The shoes they wore on the Titanic are still there in wearable condition 100 years later, and this sub can't last a few hours for goodness sake, sorry. He is spot on. Oh my god. Seriously, I literally makes you really wonder
is 400 atmosphere.
What is going on in this world because of like how this is like managed to like get away with all this. And only now, until all this has happened, all over the news, that it's all come out. And it's a bit late, isn't it? People's lost their lives, they've lost everything, their families. And I'm not talking about money or anything like that. I'm talking about their life. Their actual life is literally absolutely disgusting. And like I said, it doesn't make a difference if they're rich or anything like that. Billionaires, they work for it. They worked all their life to where they got whatever they did, they work for it. Like any other person or man or woman, or whoever you want to call yourself or identify yourself as, you have worked for that, and you don't have to excuse to anyone what you have, to anyone. No one at all needs to actually bring that up because of it doesn't make no difference, because you cannot replace your life with money.
Which is 400 times the pressure we experience at sea level. You pump the
I'm
tires
only
of
saying
your
that
car
because
at
it's like in
atmosphere.
loads of comments,
200
and
times
it's really
the
horrible
pressure
to
that is
hear that,
in
and I bet the
the
family
tires
must
of your
hate
car.
it. Because
Somehow,
of,
before
it's
we...
very disrespectful, and that's the only reason I'm saying that is because a lot of people have said this on lots of comments and things like that, and I think it's disgusting. It's like, you know what I mean? Yeah, they're millionaires, so what? It's like, you know what I mean? Is anyone like kicking you in the shins because if you've got a few grand and you own a house or whatever you own? Do you know what I mean? Your family is like, that's priceless. That's what you call riches, is family, yeah? That's what I call riches anyway. When you get money, that's a bonus. Just gets you on in life a bit better, you know? A bit more money helps, and you can do things more than the other guy can, or lady, or whatever you want to be called. You know what I mean? That's all it is. It's just bloody money, man. But, I don't know.
Hear or learn more about exactly what went wrong and What can you tell us about just the efforts that went into this? We understand that it was a robotic device that detected this, that there were several that were used to reach these extreme depths that here in the United States, it's 12,500 feet. That is the ocean floor where the Titanic wreckage is. Can you talk to us a little bit about just what it takes, how these work, and what went into identifying the pieces that were found?
Yeah, underwater at those depths, there is no light, obviously, and the light actually can penetrate probably maximum 20 meters for a strong light. So you cannot use really light to see anything underwater. You have to use acoustic waves, a sonar. The reflection of the acoustic wave that you emit come back, and there is a sensor that read the distance basically from which the acoustic wave reflects. And then the image in modern sonar with the synthetic aperture is reconstructed, and it can give you a pretty good image, three-dimensional image even of the bottom. This is the technology we mount on our autonomous underwater vehicle that are unmanned vehicle that can scan the surface of the sea bottom while they are traveling at a certain speed, usually between 2 and 3 knots on top of the bottom. And we can reach 4,000 meters with our unmanned vehicles, even 6,000 meters. We developed a vehicle like that for a startup in Boston that then was acquired by a large company. And now we're building many more.
Stefano, you know, as we're learning more about this, I'm struck a bit by how rapidly technology has evolved. The Titanic sunk in 1912. At that point, it was considered the greatest technological achievement of its time. 75 years later, in 1985, it was discovered by Robert Ballard through a robotic, an ROV.
Not 1975, 1985.
That was also part of
1980s. It wasn't 1975 because I was just born. I remember it was 1980 something. That I watched it on a black and white portable TV while my dad were getting into bed, and I had it. He was like, "Turn it down." I was like, I had it up. He went to sleep, so he just come back from the pub, and my mum was away. I always remember. I never forget it. And plus the story I told you about my granddad.
Of what found the Titan now, that part of that team. And today, in 2023, we have human exploration down to these depths, 2 miles below the ocean's surface. I'm wondering, as we're talking about this, and it just seems so incredible how quickly we have made these changes. What lessons come from this? You teach, I believe you teach students about marine autonomy, robotics. Where does this go? And did these 5 lose their lives in pursuit of scientific advancement?
Yes, well, we teach, we have a program in ocean engineering, so we teach our students actually how to design and build a large naval vessel, including submarines, large submarines. This was more of an experimental submersible, I would say, with some new kind of material used for the pressure hull for the first time, I would say, to reach those depths. Carbon fiber has never been used for a pressure vessel to reach those depths. And there is a reason, actually, because carbon fiber is much less compliant in case of failure than traditional steel or even titanium. Steel and titanium are ductile materials. They can deform in a plastic manner. And even if they implode and fail, they can still guarantee a certain integrity. So while carbon fiber breaks immediately, is fragile and it breaks in pieces, probably those pieces that they found.
So I just want to make sure that I'm understanding you correctly, Stefano, because we're not experts, Stefano, sorry, but that the carbon fiber that was used in the submersible, the Titan, was that it had less integrity.
It has advantages. It is lighter and thinner for the same kind of strength in static condition. Let's say in case of failure where the structure heavily deforms and start to curve on itself, carbon fiber doesn't allow for plastic deformation. So doesn't allow for large deformation. It starts to crack and completely break.
So given that this is the first time that it's being used, Stefano, is what you're saying, I mean, do you have a suspicion that perhaps this level of innovation could have something to do with why this happened? Is this what you suspect?
I mean, yeah, traditional steel or titanium may have mitigated the failure, perhaps. Yes.
And from what you know, how long do you think we'll have to wait to understand whether or not this I guess, suspicion that you have is, in fact, what could have caused this catastrophic implosion?
If it is as certain as we understand from the declaration of the Coast Guard that these debris are from the pressure hull of the vessel, this is 100% what happened. I mean, the hull imploded, and a small lack of symmetry, a small misalignment. The hull was built in.
There is there. That's the bit they found, what I seen. So that is just, that's nothing. No one goes inside that. Basically, it's there. That is what you'd go into. You don't go in that. What I know of, anyway, because of this year goes rang something up. It's just a cat just to make it look like a fish or something. I don't know what they were saying, something like that about something to make it look like I don't know. I don't know what they tried to make it look like, but at the end of the day, what did it look like? An octopus is sort of like eyes there or something, and obviously there's no octopus legs or anything, but it sort of looks like that. And obviously, what the other thing they found was let's have a look.
In two parts at least, connected by bolted connection. So the smallest
bolts fail away from when it like goes to the floor or gets picked up by the crane. They found that, and that plastic bit I was just telling you about.
Just the misalignment, the smallest asymmetry.
That bit there. I think that's just because that can go that way, and also it can turn and go downwards. So basically, the person who's looking at it, there's like a window in the front, and then basically they would go up, and it goes down vertically, and then as you go to the Titanic, you see, you would sort of go down like that. Trying to explain it with the cursor. Can you see the cursor? Right, so the cursor, like if you look at the cursor there, say it's like straight, yeah, it won't. What they were saying is like basically it goes like that. It basically goes round or that way. Well, because there's a window there, or it goes that way. I don't know. Probably would do because of the way it's done. It'd probably speed through the water faster and get there. But if that's the case, the window's there. So basically, what I can think, it probably goes round that way, vertically, it turn up that way, or around that way. So you just think of it standing up, like a building, like a tower, and then you got windows here, and then you got Titanic down here somewhere, and then basically the 3 peoples or 5 holes or whatever, or just the one window, people would take in turns and have a look round, or they have probably little tellies on there where they could see live images. Normally there'd be a cable on, they had one on James Cameron's one where you could have the live feed and things like that, and plus like I would have thought basically I would have had like a cage around this, and say if it did add a failure, it would have been able to, like, I would have had like a cage, but it wouldn't have failed. It probably would have, like, it would have been more bits I could have brought up. At least it would have been horrible and gruesome. But what I'm saying is probably nothing left of the people. But what I'm saying is it could have shed some light onto what failed on that machine. Like I said, something happened. With, I don't know if this is the same one, but it got stuck in the propeller, and a guy was talking about it. And well, I've got to try and find that video. I don't know where it is, but anyway, let's carry on with it.
Can start this kind of failure, and then at those pressures, everything happens very fast and in a catastrophic way, unfortunately.
And just so I understand a little bit of the timing and what we can expect to learn moving forward, do they need to bring those pieces back up? Can these ROVs, or what is used to bring this back up and study it closer, or because of the quality of the cameras and the technology used, is it possible to study everything you need to learn to understand why this happened? Can that be done from the bottom of the ocean?
Yeah, I think that it is possible nowadays to have a good image. Let's say it's an artificial image, but a good image of the debris and pieces they found on the bottom, and from there reconstruct what happened. Yes, I I mean, they will decide, but I wouldn't spend time and effort in retrieving the pieces from the bottom, which is a complicated maneuver because you need arms, manipulators, and probably the current vehicles cannot do that.
Will Conan joins us now. He's president and CEO of Hydrospace Group, which specializes in engineering pressure vehicles for human capacity. Will, first, I'd like to get your reaction to Thursday's news.
Yeah, this has been a very sad day. We've been on pins and needles for days, and hearing the Coast Guard announcement this morning. I've been doing this for a few hours now, trying to find a word that's just stronger than tragic. This is very tragic. This is the single biggest incident in our industry of submersibles since 1960. That's 60 years. This has never happened. We've had some fatalities, 4 fatalities in the 1970s, 2 or 3 different events, and here in a single event, we have this is more than all the rest combined. So it is very sad. They're all colleagues. I mean, this is a small community. The families are it's just devastating for the families. And look, there is a world of engineers and professionals that gathers. I'm chairman of the submersible committee within the Marine Technology Society. It's been around since 1968. We gather, we discuss, we review designs, regulations. We are close to this. We have safe regulations, and it is a battle between pushing the boundary of innovation and regulation. One is too slow, one is too fast, and finding the balance. It's tricky for any industry of finding that balance. And sadly, in the world of deep ocean, and this is very, very deep, even in our industry, this is very deep. There's only 10 vehicles that in the entire world that can go to this depth. And
do you have a sense, Will, of do you have a theory about what might have happened, and do you think there's any way to ever know?
Yeah, I think we will know. I mean, they will be picking up the pieces. We will see what one of the issues is seeing what the debris field is down there. We have some amazing technology on the seafloor with the remotely operated vehicles. I mean, these are very dexterous machines that can take photographs, video, and pick up some of the parts. But look, when something like that happens, when they call it a catastrophic implosion, that just means an underwater explosion, just inwards, and that means something gave way. If they have the front and the back pieces, as those were made out of titanium, it appears that the central part just gave way.
The Navy detected what it called an acoustic anomaly consistent with an implosion after the Titan lost contact on Sunday. The official says the information was shared with the Coast Guard, which used it to narrow down the search area. Now, today, the Coast Guard said in a press conference that throughout its search, it had listening devices in the water, but did not detect any catastrophic failures. And it said for 72 hours, or about 3 days, it had sonar buoys in the water that did not detect any catastrophic events.
Right, that's that. Gonna leave the stream now. I can't say what is what. I do know what is what. A bloody mess and total disregard for people's lives. And someone really needs to. Oh, I don't know. It's such a shame. It's so. It's horrible. Anyway, God bless you all. I hope you're all good when you watch this video. Basically, please don't subscribe for this video. It's literally, I'm doing it because I've got a passion for it, like I said, with my granddad and things like that. And plus, people's lives were lost, and plus, that's the reason why I said don't subscribe to it. I don't know, any other videos, yeah. But anyway, I hope you all the best. Stay safe and avoid things what seem too true, and it always is. God bless you, and I hope you're all good. Be safe. Be on the bright side. Thank you for watching the stream. Here we go.